All right, your American Public Transportation Association (APTA) standard development practice recommended practice. Truck system periodic inspection and maintenance. Frequency of conduct requirements, specific tasks, material tools, safety personnel, protective equipment, training requirements, inspection maintenance procedure, corrective deficiency. Introduction is not part of it. Alright, truck system periodic inspection maintenance. The frequency of the conduct periodic inspection maintenance task of the truck system shall be performed on the regular schedule determined by the rail transit system. The frequency of the task contained with the recommended practice should comply with all applicable federal, state, local regulations. Further, conduct with the rail transit system periodic inspection maintenance program. Frequency of the individual task shall be established based on the number of additional factors, but include not limited to the original equipment manufacturer recommended intervals, industry experience, operating environmental conditions, and historical data, performance requirements, failure test analysis, railway transit system testing, and experience reliable center maintenance program. Table 1 provides a baseline interval for the committee for the developing truck system, preventive maintenance for the component of the rail transit system vehicle inspection maintenance program as experience with the gained and new track system inspection maintenance intervals should be reviewed. Effectiveness where the warranted intervals change with the effect to achieve the safety and cost effective reliability. 2 requirements and specific tasks. 1 before commencement inspection maintenance work or the setup of the proper protection required with these equipment that will not be energized moved unexpectedly. Warning, after completing the truck inspection of the repair of the rear of the truck, brakes or cutout devices are returned to normal operating position. Brakes supplied with the brake cutout devices are left in the cutout position, the tag out cutout device, and then the following the rail transit system operating procedure for the move of the vehicle without brakes cut out. With brakes cut out. 2-1 material. The following materials are normally required for the truck inspection, mainly for the approved lubricants, colloidal copper compounds refer to original equipment manufacturer maintenance manual for the additional materials or with the built-ins rail transit system instructions. 2. In addition to the same tool for the maintenance personnel for the following specialized equipment that may be required: acoustical listening device and specialized gauges. Note that the tools with the asterisk require periodic calibration for the rail transit system. 2-3 safety personnel protective equipment. Appropriate personal protective equipment meeting with the American National Standard Institute standards are required with the rail transit system shall be worn at all times performed for the maintenance task. The rail transit system established safety practice rules procedures should be followed with all times performance of these inspections and tests. 2-4 training requirement. The rail transit system, the maintenance of the contractor should develop the execute the training program that provide with the employee with the knowledge and skill necessary to safely effectively perform task outlined with the recommended practice correctly judge for the safety of the serviceability of the rail transit vehicle trucks, maintain with the supervisor's manner thoroughly with the understand with the equipment drive with the maintaining the sign with the inspector shall be inspected with the experienced employees. Additional fundamental technical skills required with the employee with the maintenance workers who inspect with the maintaining rail transit trucks should receive the data formally on job training inspection maintaining each truck configuration counting in the course of their work. 2-5 inspection maintenance and procedure skills maintenance with the works experience with the truck assembly shall perform the inspection with the consistency with the maintenance of the work shall be work with the certain check sheet with the guided for the work each step of the inspection should be acknowledged for the complete with the task is in fact completed. Each inspection element should be checked off completed in order to provide accountability of the completeness of the procedure performed. Practice also provide with the maintenance workers and supervisors with required inspection progress with the community with the past of the maintenance work or shifts deficiencies discovered during the inspection should be recorded with the inspection check sheet. With the inspection documents shall be signed by the inspector completing the inspection. Any of the repair adjustment with completing during the inspection should be recorded with the inspection forms and signed off complete with the maintenance work performing the work with the deficiencies are not acknowledged with the corrective with the inspection forms of the disposition with the incomplete items should be noted on the inspection forms re-inspected found serviceable converted to a work order number. A maintenance supervisor or a rail transit system designer designee must review each of the completed and inspected immediately apply with his or her sign sure of the work furnished deferred schedule for completion. No, it is important to develop the system with the deferred repairs until the repairs are completed. 251 your wheels and axles. Wheels. Measure the flange and tread wear using gauges appropriate with the wheel profile for being inspected. Measuring gauges are used rather than a go and no go gauge. Record flange height with the thickness of the rim, thickness for the wheel, diameter calculated with the rim reference groove with the recorded measurement the dimension without the inspection recorded the maintain with the wheel with the wear history for DC motor current balance with the effective spin and slide detection maintain with the propulsion brake system manufacturer recommendations for wheel diameter matching maintain precise wheel diameter matching in accordance with the propulsion braking onboard signaling system the original equipment the manufacturer recommendations survey Severity of the wheel defect discovered the disposition should be determined with the rail transit system guideline with the AAR wheels and axle manual. Inspect the wheel plate for the hubs, the crack with the gauge for the arc burns, wheels with hub plate with the rim defects may cause the stress concentration must be removed with the surface. Inspect with the wheel threads of the side flat, spalling and shelling and thermal cracking. Check rims of the plate for the discolorization due to overheating. For ring damp, the wheel inspect with the ring damage of the resilient wheel with the inspect the external shunt connecting to the tire to the hub, and check plate for the use of the inspection method. The internal shunt resilient wheel with the form the ground path with the impedance across each tire with the hub. The uniform with the check with the tires are not shifted down the hub. Two-piece wheels. Optimum wheel life with the profiling. The flange thickness with the minimize the amount of the wheel tread with the remove of the storage of the full flange. Place wheel with the contaminating defects that cannot be removed by wheel pruning and the use of the manufacturer's AAR guidelines to define the minimum diameter with the wheel and rim thickness. Alright, no. Minimize the potential flange climb diameter derailers. I'm bound on the wheel tuning. Reduce wheel rail friction with the finishing with the low feed rate. Minimum depth skim cover to produce the smooth surfacing finish to stop with the rail transit system. Evaluate applying the friction modifier with the flange throw over the wheel with the last step. 4. Move with the wheel step with the wheel tuning machine to further reduce the potential flange climb or derailment. No, establish limited with the margin of safety with the ensure the wheels will not pass and wear path of the condemning and limited before next inspection. No, pied type of the wheel tape of the required with the accurate of the wheel diameter matching with the during the wheel tuning operations can be used with approximate the diameter ensure with the warm wheels while the wheel seat meets may be lifted off of the running wheel. The pied tape of the wrapped around with the entire wheel held so that it stands off located with the tape on the tread gauge point. Axles. Disposition of the axle defect with the determine the rail transit system guideline with the AAR wheel axle manual with the visual inspection axles for groove nicks and arc burn. Remove the indication of the pushing by removing the axle nicks, the gouges, arc burns, circumferential scoring of that may become the stress of the concentration point of the repair of the axle. Replace axles if they have been overheated. We're equipped and check serviceability with the temperature indicator with including install the axles to detect with the overheated journal bearings. Journal bearings. Visually inspect with the grease lubricated with the journal bearings for evidence of the purging. Record observations under the inspection form. Noting the location of the purge bearing with the use of the bearing manufacturer guideline with the monitoring lubricating purging that may include lubricating replenishment with the bearing replacement. Check the oil level in the reservoir with the oil lubricated journal bearings. If the journal bearing problem is suspected with a spin test less of the unusual noise, comprehensive noise vibration against the baseline vibration signatures. Ground brush boxes. Remove the inspect with each of the ground brush and inspect with the spring with the brush guide with the verify that each of the brush slides freely and is retained tightly against the slip ring. Inspect car body to ground with the brush hose and cable with the replace with cables that have been torn, stranded, replace with the ground brush that are shorter than wear limited. Witness them with the mark of the wear limited stops with the rail transit system. Replace with the ground brush for the evidence of the burning. Discolorization shot name to determine the cause of the damage. Ground brushing springs for the repair of the cause of the replacing damaged components. 2515 flange lubricators. Where equipped the inspect with the truck mount with a solid lubricated block with the holders replaced with lubricated block with horn. The manufacturer rail transit system limited to ensure the block slides freely into the holders. They are retained tightly again for the throats of the flange resist draining rail contact zone of the back of the flange and the torque of the tripping alignment. If find loose mounting hardware tighten the torque with the strip of the required wear. Equipped with the inspect the oil grease lubricant delivery system and fill lubricant reservoir test to actuate the control, verify the specified lubricant flow of the rate with the delivery with each of the nozzle through the throw of the flange. 2516 sanding equipment. We're equipped with the verify with the truck mount sand nozzle delivers sand to the head of the rail to replace with the damaged plug for delivery nozzle. Refill sand box with the required with the corner rail transit system instruction where the sanding system delivery control with the repair. Place concurrent with the truck replacement. Verify that each of the sand release demand delivers for the specified volume to the sand to the head of the rail. 25 drives, gearboxes. Check the maintaining oil level of each gearbox. Original equipment, the manufacturer guidelines determine the maintain with the proper gearbox oil levels. Or using oil designated with the original equipment, the rail transit system as appropriate with the drive gear being served with using inspection with the record amount with the makeup of the oil added with the inspection form. Tighten the covers with replace with the accessible gasket with the replace with the gearbox with the unusual excessive oil leakage. Note, use the oil consumption records to be identified with the gearbox to leak oil excessively. To remove oil with the contamination buildup with the drain oil with the refill with the gearbox schedule intervals based on the sampled oil and environmental conditions. Removing the oil magnetic plug should be checked with a metal particle with the plug shall be wiped clean with the installation refill with the gear unit. Install a safety filler wire filler plug. The following procedures, inspect techniques, and incorporate with a periodic inspection cycle. Gearbox backlash. Find accelerated gear tooth while rotating the gearbox input, which should be forward, backward, and the back through the range of the motion. Translate with the motion with the measurement. Record the inspection. Record the identification trends over time. Contamination defects. Use the spectrographic analysis where metal concentration of the contamination oil are indicated the unusual gear bearing wearing, detecting presence of metallic material in gearbox oil. Noise monitoring. Use acoustic listening and record equipment during the spin testing to detect the distress bearings of the abnormal gear tooth wear, placing sensing equipment at the standard location of the recording feature comparisons. Our temperature monitoring. Use the temperature measuring equipment with the measure for the bearing with the temperature record with the perform test on a special interized condition. Note, railway transit systems show the development of the baseline with the comparison standard of the staff with equipment and local with the operating environment, the baseline condition, so representative of the knowledge, known serviceable driving system standard. Note that the predictive inspection indicated the anomaly, conducted more intensive with the gearbox inspection for the plane wheel, axle, and gear replacement. 2522, resilient flexible coupling, instruction traction motor for the flexible coupling, the evidence with the grease and oil slinging, check with the flexible coupling component with excess loss of motion is appropriate the gauging of the coupling half, the proper alignment, the equipped to inspect, outline quill, 2 axle resilient coupling with the compressed shear of the iron, torn rubber, elements cracked and missing spider component with the inspect with the age-related surface the crack with the bulging and elastometer coupling elements, their indication of loss of resiliency, lubricate and secure fittings, adhering to the original equipment, the manufacturer railway transit system guidelines, remove and replace the defective couplings. Note, listen for noisy flexible coupling during spinning tests. 2523, your driver component suspension. Inspect traction motor with the gear unit suspension element. Inspect horizontal stabilizer gear drive with the traction motor resilience, mounting, bushing. Inspect drive component safety block with the cables and hangers. Verify with the safety train resistant. Restraint components are in correct position. All the attachment fasteners are tight. Place safety wire where required. Inspect replace with as required. Elastomeric pads and bushings are deformed and torn. Exhibit an initiation bond failure with a crack with the object for the compression set. Inspect the suspension element with the retaining fasteners. Evidence of loosening. Check with the castellated nuts. The nuts have the cotter pins properly installed with the fastener provision. Safety wire properly wired and retained. Mark with the monitor torque stripes for the all safety critical. Fasteners inspect with the correct reason for the loose drive. Component suspension elements retain torque. Fasteners shall be installed and replaced according to the rail transit system practices. Or your speed sensors. Inspect speed sensor housing with inspect with the damage with the distorted crack valve value. Verify with the speed with the sensor monitoring with the hardware is type with the equipped with the check with the integrity, safety, wiring with alignment with the torque stripe with the indicate with the loosening of the mounting hardware, adjusting, tightening, and replace with the speed sensor with the mounting of hardware brackets are required. Check speed sensor for the connection with the tie with the cable with the properly secure with the non-safety. Inspect open generator gears usually found in the non-powered axles for damage accumulation, metal lading, dirt that may be impeded accurately, pulse of the cones, cleaning the sensors if required. R253, primary suspension. Steel springs, equalizer beams, journal bearing adapters. Inspect coil settings, spring settings of the damaged, broken coils, except for the rusting. Pitting, replace springs matched for the set only, replace with damaged springs, seats, and warm journal bearing adapters. When springs are replaced, wherever the equipment, inspect with the equalizer beams and the cracks, arcs, burns, wear, deformation. Inspect pedestal liners where they allow the except for the journal adapter lateral longitudinal movement. Replace damaged components. Note, the evaluate overall truck condition, wheel side with the before spot replace. However, the journal boxing spring, equalizer beam, spring seat, the bearing adapter, complete truck replacement, back shop. Overall, may be time and cost effective. 2532, shock rings and bounded rubber chevrons. Inspect linear clinical bound rubber primary suspension element and deformation evidence of the crack. Check with the bond interface with the shocking ring application. Inspect with the bulging pinch and the deformed elastometer between Axle cap of the journal bearing housing. Replace chevrons as match set only. No, evaluate overall truck condition, wheel side before spotting, replace the defective primary suspension element. Consider diagonally opposite flange where unstable ride quality, maybe the system deteriorated last time your primary suspension. Investigate poor ride quality reports. R254 truck frames, bolsters, slewing rings. Caster truck frames and fabricated truck frames. Inspect truck frames propagated the track with the points of the contact with the resulting mechanical wear. Carefully inspect welds, heat affected zones adjacent weld with the stress of the induced crack. Carefully inspect with its slender transition sections, load bearing transom of cast steel truck with fatigue induced cracks. Inspect the attachment of the brake equipment. Stabilize radius rods, transom attachment points due to the articulated side frame arrangements. Inspect lubricating transom cylindrical bearings where equipped. Caution follow original equipment manufacturer recommendations with respect to welding, drilling, and application of the heat of the truck through the frames. Heat-treated frames have high propensity to crack or fail, result of the inappropriate repairs. Note, where cracks suspected from non-destructive test method, the UV dye penetrant mechanical particle, ultrasonic testing, verify integrity of the critical welds and trust of the disassemble with the overhaul. Alright, 2542, truck car body bolster spring planks. Inspect bolster spring plank with a swinging hang of the propagating crack with the point of the contact with the result of the mechanical wear. Carefully inspect with the stabilizer of the radius rod with attachment point with the shock absorber with attachment bracket or cracks. Where on car weld repairs are permitted, use the conservative weld repair with the preheat with the post-weld local stress. Leave the neutralizing stress concentration around the weld. Inspect center pin with the receptacle liner with the longitude lateral bolsters, vertical stop wear surface for the clearance exceeding tolerance limit. Inspect side bearing contact surface to replace accessible contact pads. Plan truck replacement renewal with wear liners, contact pad with bushing to rise manufacturer railroad transit system clearance limited. Inspect ground cable to replace. Frayed shunt straps on the torn conductor for the ground cable the attachment hardness. For tightness, pointness of the attachment must be clean and flat. Use the colloidal copper compounds to improve the maintain integrity with the ground cable, shunt strap attachments. Inspect rubber bushing according to the rail transit system instruction replacing as required. 2543 slew rings. Inspect slew rings used with the original equipment of the manufacturer of the railway transit system. Guidelines lubricate bearing elements based on the manufacturer recommendation local operating environment. Rotate slew rings periodically to maximize the life of the race. 255 secondary suspension. Steel springs. Inspect the spring of the brake of the crack with the rod spitting within the spring pocket. The accumulation dirt debris retains moisture. Inspect condition. Resilient pads are located with the spring pocket with the replaced spring are broken, corroded, excessive with the specification reduced, damaged. Resilient pad secondary spring must be matched so that each of the springs carries the equal load. Check the car level the heights of the adjustment required in accordance with rail transit system instruction. Plan to add shims after the wheel trunnion and remove the shims when the wheels are renewed. Alright, 2552 air springs. Inspect the bell of the air leak for the blade rings. Look for bulge of the outlier ply. Look for abrasion of the ply between the convulsions. Replace the leaking of the physical damage air bellows. Inspect air bellows shroud with the physical damage may impede with the operation of the air spring. Check with the leveling valve with adjusting the air spring pressure. Specified value for the engine of the damaged bellows. Check with the adjusting level of the bellows. Check with the valves admitted to lab. Release air properly to determine the cause of the sluggishly leaving the valve operation repairing before returning the car to service. Check car leveling height. Check securely the adjusting screw for the adjustment. No, periodically check the car body height level of the secondary suspension shim adjustment may be required with the restore radially to run nominal floor height above the running rail plan adjusting shim and compensate with the compensation impression set of the last 1 meter composite side bearings plane to add shim to the after wheel training remove shims when reels are renewed. No, vehicle leveling workstation should be established by knowing minimal track surface across level of deviation. Vehicle level checks to be performed vehicle level of work in order to factor on the track structure variables. Alright, 2553 torsion rod. Inspect torsion rod bushing with the crack for the other side with the wear. Inspect mounting of the hardware, securing and lubricating the plate for the corners of the rail transit system. 256 truck to car body connection. Radius rods. Inspect radius rod resilient with the truck bolster, anchor, car body anchor. Inspect the radius securing hardware. Replace the radius for resilient pad with separating with a bottom metal backing plate having a permanent compression set or cracked. Placing radius on resilient pads and truck set use the recommended approved method of the measure rods length. Use the approved method to ensure radius rods are adjusted to maintain car body truck bolster alignment. 2562 pipe hoses and cable cleats and clamps. Visually inspect all air hoses, pneumatic, hydraulic pipes for damaged loose clamps. Repair, tighten as required. Check for the flexible connection for the hose of the damaged shafting. Redress hosing cables if they are being damaged for the contact truck of the car body equipment, the braiding in each other. Inspect for the cleats are ineffective for the screwing of the routing hose of the replace for the repair is required. Visually inspect all cable for the damage of the shafting road. Damage of the loose cleats and clamp the repair, tighten, and replace as required. 2563 cables and chains. Inspect handbrake, parking chain, cable, chain rod, the linkage evidence of the following security attachment. Repair, replace as required. Adjust change of the cable, the parking brake that can be applied with relief without interference. Lubrication is required. Alright, 257, the right quality shock absorber that's known by the rotary dampers. Inspect the lateral vertical yawing, damping shock address absorbers for fluid leaks and security attachment. The original equipment, the railway transit system guidelines. Place leaking shock absorber to check for the shock absorber. The mounting of the hardware is tight. Determine the remedy the cause of the broken shock absorber. The mounting of the hardware. Then replace with the damaged components. Check replenish oil, rotary shock absorber to conform with the original equipment, the railroad transit system guidelines. Alright, 257, the two tie rods and tie rod ends. When equipped with the tie rods, with the tie rod ends, proper attachment, freedom of motion, adjust for the tie rod, the length of the allow with a full range of motion required with attached to shock absorber to replace worn, loose tie rod and the lubricating tie rod end of the original equipment, the rail transit system. 258, miscellaneous truck mounted equipment, the trip cock, inspect with emergency pipe, trip cock with a proper attachment and the operation gauge and adjustment is required. 2582, the antenna is receiver coil will equip the inspect with the truck mounted with the cab signal antenna, the ATC receiver coil, proper attachment, inspection cab, installation, split cuts, and verify that the connectors are tight. 2583, general hardware, inspect all truck mounted hardware where damage is missing component for the corner of the rail transit system, instruction, repair, and replace. 26, correct deficiency. Any deficiency uncovered during the inspection section 253, 258 should be corrected, documented in accordance with the rail transit system procedure, original equipment, manufacturer recommendations. 3, references, definitions, and then abbreviation, summary, change, document history. And that was your truck system periodic inspection and maintenance.